Hello, Dina. Can you hear me? Give us some time to final technical issues, and I'll get back to you. Да, у нас есть 19 участников онлайн. Сейчас мы подумаем, почему такое технически. Здравствуйте. Так, по-моему, лучше. Мария. Ты будешь сидеть здесь? А там по технике ничего не надо делать. Ну, это здесь. А, собственно говоря, мы сейчас будем начинать через буквально 5 минут. Я сейчас тогда выхожу на связь с Дино. Так, а если я отсюда буду вещать, возникает ли у нас эхо? Ну, это вот я сейчас пытаюсь решить.
When I'm here,
Hi,
I'm here
Dino.
listening. Hi. Are we okay?
Yes, I'm trying to figure out why we have echo. Do you have echo?
I hear your echo.
Okay, Dino, we can be starting. Let's just test your screen sharing.
Okay. I will be drinking tea for a little second. Screen sharing.
It is on top of your screen.
Now there is a little screen icon which I clicked on top of my screen. You have been made a presenter. Show my screen. It's okay. You see my screen?
Yes, we see a screen now.
Okay, now I hope you see my screen without, you see the slide, right? Do you? Ivan? I don't hear anything. Okay. Hello, Maria. I don't hear you.
And now?
Now I hear you.
Okay, Dino, we have an issue. If we have a mic turned on here, we have an echo because we are presenting you from a screen. And I will turn off the mic for a while, and you'll be just broadcasting only your part of the story.
Okay, this is nice, but
All
write
asking
some
questions further on.
Right, so then you will turn on the mic for questions?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, but try to write something into the chat because that's a good feedback. If you, I see this chat here. If you write something into the chat, if I see it, then we have a way of communicating two ways.
So Dino, shall we start?
Surely, it's 10 minutes to. Are we supposed to start exactly at 5 or we start now?
Yeah, we can start right now.
Okay. Give me a minute, huh? Or actually, I can.
Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I guess I was introduced. My name is Dino Karabeg. I will talk about the collective mind paradigm and knowledge federation, completing Doug Engelbart's unfinished revolution. My story today will begin with a riddle. The inventor who marked the computer era, Douglas Engelbart, who received all imaginable honors during his lifetime. Here we see him receiving the National Medal of Technology from the president himself. And on the right you see a list of honors. You're not supposed to read this. This is listed in his Wikipedia page. So he got them all. Got very famous during his lifetime. Now here is a little curiosity written in The Revolution in the Valley book. The story is about Bill Gates and Steve Jobs when they were very, very young, just in the beginning of their careers, arguing about who has the right to use the mouse and the windows and all that. And the story is that Steve Jobs hired Bill to do the operating system, but under the condition he had him sign a contract that he would not use any of the material. And then just a few months later, he heard that Bill Gates was announcing a piece of software called the Windows on a major industry convention, got very, very angry and called Bill immediately. And Bill said, well, the way I see it, this was not really yours. It turned out that we both had this rich neighbor named Xerox, and I brought into his house to steal the TV, only to find out that you had already stolen it. So the point here is that this so-called TV was not made by Xerox, it was made by Doug Engelbart. And here is Alan Kay, one of the leading, most famous maybe Xerox personalities and Silicon Valley personalities, saying, what will the Silicon Valley do when they run out of Doug's ideas? Now this is really big, right? Doug is the man who made the Silicon Valley. And yet Doug passed away feeling himself a failure, feeling that he had not really succeeded at all. Now I hope you can hear this and see this. Bill Dahl is Doug's
successful in accomplishing what he wanted to accomplish? No, there were a couple of times I had conversations with him where he actually cried because he just felt like he said, I'm a complete failure. Because people look at the mouse, windows, and menus and think that that was the only thing that he produced, whereas those were just tools to support a bigger vision.
Okay, and here is Sam Hahn. He is talking about the beginnings of something called the Program for the Future. The year he's talking about is 2008. Let's hear him for a moment. Oh, this is on the commemoration for Doug Engelbart. So Doug passed on the 2nd of July in 2013, and then a group of friends and collaborators gathered a couple of weeks later to commemorate Doug and gave a sequence of talks. So here's a brief excerpt from Sam's talk.
That's when we all actually met. I met a lot of you then at that time, and Berlin in particular was really a force to collect about 8 of us together, and we put together a conference on December 8th and 9th. Okay, we preceded the 9th because we wanted not just to look at what Doug had done, but to look at what is remaining to be done. So I'll give you 2 little data points. One is that in that conference in 2008, I actually asked Doug, I was lucky enough to interview Doug and said, Doug, of your vision, how much have we accomplished? We meaning the world. Okay. And he said, half jokingly, and only half, 3.2%. Now, we actually did a second conference in 2010, in March, okay, of 2010. So a lot of things happened, but again, I asked Doug, how much have we accomplished? He gave us credit. He said 3.6%.
Okay, so here's the riddle, right? What did this man have in mind that he did not accomplish, or that the world did not understand, or that was not received? What was his offering to the world that didn't yet come through? And if we can solve this riddle, then we might have really some good and interesting work to do. Now, here is a clue. You see it on the right. This is Doug speaking in 1995 about his dream that the digital technology could greatly augment human capability to deal with complex urgent problems. Quite a few people can have heard Doug say this in different occasions and associated his name with something loosely called collective intelligence. So the mystery here is, what did Doug really have in mind? What was the thing that was not understood and taken from Doug? I'm going to do something terrible here now. I'm going to answer my own riddle. You know, you don't do this. When you ask people the riddle, you let them speak. But I'm going to do this. I'm going to resolve the riddle. I'm going to unravel the mystery behind Doug for a specific reason. Because when we do that, we will see that behind this mystery, there is about 1,000 other mysteries that we can work with for the rest of our lives and resolve them together. So this is what I'm going to do. This is what I want, right? I want this lecture, this talk, to be an invitation into resolving so many mysteries together. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to say essentially what Doug was really about, what really his gift to the world was. Many people celebrate him as the person who invented the mouse, because everybody has one in their hands, and they believe that's what Doug was, a technology inventor. Other people who know a little bit better than that celebrate him for, as I already said, collective intelligence. Computers should enable the people to think together and solve the increasingly complex problems that we, the people, will have to solve. But really, Doug was about something else. And that something else was what I like to call, or what we would like to call, the collective mind. It sounds almost like the same thing as collective intelligence, but it's not quite. Doug, however, called this with one of those Engelbartian acronyms, CODIAC. Stands for Concurrent Development, Integration, and Application of Knowledge. It's a mouthful. I want to emphasize here this word, concurrent. Because...
Can you wait a second while I'm trying to translate this?
Yes.
Okay, we can move forward.
Okay, so what is really the point? From the beginning of time, this is how we communicated. If we didn't communicate directly by speaking to each other, we communicated by writing. And first it was this type of thing, and then it was this type of thing many centuries later. And you might think, okay, so there is a huge difference, but actually it's not a huge difference. The mode, the way of communicating was the same, and it had to be the same, right? You're writing something, and maybe at a certain point you're printing this something into a book, and this book sits on a shelf, and maybe it may make a life of a difference to you, what I wrote, but will you find it on that shelf? When, however, we're communicating via computers that are linked into a network, then communication can be instantaneous. I'm thinking about something, and maybe I have half the solution, but not quite, right? If I can somehow put it out there with a question mark, then maybe you can read it and answer, and then somebody else can see the answer and say, hey, I can make a technological gadget based on this idea, and so on, right? And maybe in a more important frame, if you think about our global society as an organism, wouldn't it be nice if this organism had the kind of eyes and ears that could see precisely where this whole thing is going, and the kind of mind that responds immediately to what is seen? This is not at all the case, but how the things are today. And so the point that Doug saw was that entirely different patterns of collaboration have become possible. He actually made them possible. He was creating the technology that would enable this type of communication and this type of collaboration, which is concurrent, which is instantaneous. Think about this, all institutions can change. But this is not what happened. What happened is, you will see it easily if you just look at your computer. You see your desktop, your filing cabinet, your physical environment implemented in the digital medium. You see the Word, Microsoft Word, implementing exactly the type of documents that people have been writing since the beginning of time. So if you have understood what I said so far, then you are beginning to grasp the magnitude of the frontier that is opening before us. Ivan, would you like to translate at this point? I don't hear.
Dina, one moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe use the chat to talk to me.
So, okay, everything is okay. You can go on.
So what Doug was doing, essentially his entire life, he was creating enabling technology for collective mind re-evolution. And he was also, he was creating both technology and the methodology, how exactly we were to engage in this evolution. And here is Doug's own slide from, at a certain point he was ready to give his message to the world, and he created something called the Bootstrap Seminar that was given at Stanford University in the early 1990s. So this is one of the slides that Doug was using. And let me explain what this is. It's really quite an exciting idea if we can understand it together. So what Doug is talking about is not only how to use or develop the computer technology, he's talking about how to develop technology at all, or even how to use our creative capabilities, how to innovate. So we use the expression systemic innovation for exactly what Doug is talking about here, systemic innovation. Okay, so Doug is giving us a method for systemic innovation. He's saying, look at all the human capabilities. Some of them are cultural, like paradigms, organizations, customs, institutions, and so on. Some of them are physical or tools, like the pencil and the paper. These together combine to give us capabilities that we wouldn't have if we were living on a tree and eating bananas. For example, the paper and pencil, they give us the capability to communicate by writing, but then we need schools, so this is the human system, right? We need education and so on. And so these capabilities, they form a hierarchy, because a certain high-level capabilities like reading and writing depend on all kinds of lower-level capabilities which you can easily imagine. And so what Doug had in mind was this. Let's look at the capability infrastructure, so at all human capabilities, and understand what are those ones that we most urgently need to develop at this moment. This is how collective intelligence came about. But Doug was not about collective intelligence, he was about a paradigm for systemic innovation. And so collective intelligence is simply coming up when we understand that we have lots and lots of problems that we don't know how to resolve, lots of issues that we don't really understand properly. And he's saying, wait a minute, he was looking at the computer, right? There is this P here, and this P stands for possible. And he said, okay, so the computers, if we link them into a network, equip them with interactive terminals and some other things too, can enable us to think together much more quickly, much more directly. We can create a revolution in how fast we are able to understand and solve our problems. And then there is this N, which stands for need. What else do we need in order for this thing to really happen? And this is really going to be the question of today, and my question to you, which is completely open, right? This is where 1,000 new riddles come about. What else can we do? What else is needed? So here we see Doug leaving us this challenge. Program for the Future is a community that was created around Doug, essentially emerged around Doug out of his friends and collaborators, to do something about this remaining 96.4%, which has to do with augmenting our ability to work together to solve urgent, complex problems. Doug passed away essentially with an unfulfilled wish on his lips. Doug was saying, somebody should really do this. And do this will mean begin to self-organize in a different way. What I exactly mean by this will become more and more clear as I speak, right? But here is a curiosity. Doug passed away on July 2nd, 2013. Less than 2 weeks later, his wish was actually being fulfilled. It was being fulfilled in, one could say, the most potentially impactful place that existed almost in this world, in the International Society for the System Sciences. Now, some of you know this man, Alexander Laszlo. He was then the president of the ISSS, and what you are seeing as the text is an excerpt from his presidential address. So he became the president in 2012, and he decided to initiate the self-organization in the systems community toward collective intelligence. So this was the first time anybody ever thought, okay, we are scientists, we are communicating by writing articles, and the scientists should Isn't that what being a scientist is all about? He said, wait a minute, guys. We can, in fact, organize ourselves in a completely different way. We can apply systemic thinking and systemic innovation to our own system. So this is what he did on as everybody, as a president, you know, one is a president for 1 year, and one creates his own conference. His conference was called Curating the Conditions for a Thrivable Planet, and there he was inviting not only system scientists, but actually all kinds of people, all kinds of experts, social entrepreneurs, visual designers, all kinds of folks, to essentially fulfill Doug's mission. So to co-create a living network of institutions and individuals learning together how thrivability frameworks and practices help humanity tackle the world complex problems.
Dino, one moment, please. So, Dina, sorry, we needed some time for translation, so now you can go on.
Okay. Why is this particular instance of systemic self-organization so important? The system sciences were created in order to show the systems to the world, to teach us to not just blindly inherit the ways we work together, the ways we organize knowledge, the ways we create knowledge, and the ways we create anything else, but to actually think and work and innovate, use our creative capabilities systemically. And this is what Doug was really largely about, right? He was saying, if we look at the systems in which knowledge and information are used, we can do infinitely better regarding the effectiveness of those systems. If you recreate them according to creatively use the capabilities, the new capabilities of the new technology. And so it would be natural that this kind of re-evolution of systems would begin in the systems community, right? And this is essentially what Alexander was initiating as a president. And the word was heard. His message was heard. So he was essentially telling the system scientists, be the systems you want to see in the world. You see Alexander and myself in Vienna in 2013. Now, our collaboration, our story began in 2013. I flew to Vietnam when he was the president, and we met there physically and began collaborating. I will say a few words more about this. But in Vienna, when I saw that Alexander was wearing this message on his T-shirt, which says, "Nothing is more powerful than an idea whose time has come," and that I was wearing actually his message. This was the slogan that he was contributing to the system scientists, which became the slogan of EMCSR Vienna. EMCSR stands for European Meetings on Cybernetics and Systems Research. Be the systems you want to see in the world. Be the systems, don't just write articles about the systems. Create a system with your own bodies. So I said, okay, Alexander, let's do a photo session. And I'm showing this to you, you know, not to advertise ourselves, but to advertise the message, which is completely crucial. Be the systems you want to see in the world. It's a major, major paradigm shift. Knowledge Federation, which largely the rest of my story today is going to be about, has essentially grown, has developed to, I like to talk about streamlining or prospecting the work on this new frontier. You will easily notice that conventional scientific disciplines are not really equipped to do this type of work. We don't have any discipline that does that can work on this new frontier, and even if we did, it would be a silo. It wouldn't be a real. We're talking about essentially putting human knowledge together into completely new forms. And so, Knowledge Federation has organized as a transdiscipline, and what I want to tell you now is how Knowledge Federation has self-organized, what has happened, and tell you some stories about what we have been doing, and then essentially let you ask questions or give comments. And so we started in 2008 as a group of knowledge media researchers working essentially in the same direction that Doug was pointing to. We were creating systems. When we met, we realized that the systems we and our colleagues were creating could positively change the world, change how knowledge media or information technology is used in creating systems in the world. But the critical task is, how do we change those systems? And we realized that in order to tackle that task, in order to do anything about it, we ourselves needed to self-organize in a different way. And so in our second meeting, which was in Dubrovnik, we have meetings every second year in Dubrovnik, and then in the remaining time in all kinds of places in the world. We invited not only knowledge media researchers, but actually all kinds of professionals, a creative mix of professionals, sorry, who together can create a kind of a collective mind social organism. And we invited these people to consider themselves not as professionals pursuing a career in a certain field, sorry, but as cells in a collective mind, and to begin to self-organize as it might best suit our function in the collective mind. And so you see the people who were the keynoters. They were essentially telling us about the need for systemic reorganization or self-organization in knowledge work and in journalism. subsequent 1 year of self-organization. So we developed a new way of working. Essentially, this way of working is that we create a systemic prototype by using our own bodies and the bodies of the people who belong to a certain field, let's say journalists. I'll show you an example in a moment, and then this will be more clear. And then we create a transdiscipline around this, so a smaller version of a transdiscipline, which includes, let's say, knowledge media workers, includes the field experts, for example, journalists, and all kinds of other experts and stakeholders as needed. And we together, so this prototype is embedded in reality, it functions, right? And the transdiscipline around it watches its function, sees how it works, and updates it continuously. So that this becomes not one of those, a new dead body in a social organism, but a living, evolving part of the social organism, a living and evolving institution. And so this enabled us to, at our next workshop, which was at Stanford University in 2011, announce that, first of all, systemic innovation as an emerging frontier, both needed and ready to be explored and taken up. And we could announce this way of working that Knowledge Federation developed as an enabler for systemic innovation. So I use this slide. Let me see how much time I have. The idea was basically that as one thinks, this is the story I was telling at Stanford at the time, think about a tailor shop, right? Imagine that you find yourself in front of a tailor shop and you're a journalist and you think, oh my God, journalism as it is today, it really has a problem. It has problems creating revenue in competition with all the free information on the web. And at the same time, we might question, is journalism as it is really giving us, the people of today, the right kind of information that we need in order to function in the complex world of today? Wouldn't it be nice if we could, as one can go into a tailor shop and have his clothes and create?
Sorry?
Wouldn't it be nice if we could tailor our professions?
Dina, I'm sorry, could you speak a bit slower?
Slower in the sense of, oh, you're translating simultaneously, right?
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely.
Okay. And so the question here is, or the question you might imagine posing yourself if you're a journalist in front of a tailor shop, wouldn't it be nice if we could have a kind of a tailor shop, but not for clothes, but for professions? So that we could have our professions or institutions recreated as it might suit not only ourselves, but also, and in fact primarily, the society in which our professions have a function, have a role. So this is precisely what Knowledge Federation is, as an institution, as a transdiscipline. Just a couple of months later, in a workshop in Barcelona, we were able to do precisely what we were talking abstractly at Stanford. We were recreating journalism. The name of this workshop was An Innovation Ecosystem for Good Journalism. So we were really creating two things there. One was a model, a prototype for the journalism that could suit the 21st century. But another one was, how do we do this? How can we actually recreate journalism? Who can do it? And so we were creating essentially a model, a prototype of systemic innovation. This is what this innovation ecosystem is about. So we invited Paddy Calder, who, as you already saw, was the director of the Reuters journalism program of study at Oxford, and at the time when we invited him, he was the director of Oxford Global Media. So Paddy is a person who embodies good journalism. He is good journalism. We invited him to be the chair. So symbolically, we were giving the reins into the hands of good journalism. We cannot change journalism. They have to do it. David Price of DebateGraph, I don't like to just hop over DebateGraph. It is a major development in exactly enabling collective intelligence or collective mind re-evolution in the world. So may I just suggest that you Google DebateGraph and look at it a little bit. But we invited David Price to represent the knowledge media side of the emerging transdiscipline. Mei-Lin, whom you heard about in Sam's short talk, who was the leader of the Program for the Future. She was the initiator of the Program for the Future. Actually, Sam later took the lead, and Sam is now pretty much leading this community. She was also there, representing Doug Engelbart's tradition and all the collective intelligence insight that emerged in the valley around Doug. And so we were designing, we were recreating journalism together. There were also some journalism creatives, essentially journalists who were recreating journalism who were from Barcelona, in Barcelona. So with them, we were creating a model which ended up looking kind of like this. So what you see here, this number 8, is how we saw good journalism. Essentially, it operates in 2 loops. So you see the bottom loop and the upper loop, and we can begin on the right from the bottom loop in this little title which says crowdsourcing news. They already had a project which was called Wikidiario in Barcelona, which was essentially, instead of telling the people about things, it was listening to people. So people could report about their own problems. You can notice that anybody can be a journalist, right? You're walking by in the street and you see something that instead of calling the media, you can just record what you see with your mobile phone and send right away to a media agency and so on. And so you can say that the role of journalists becomes maybe something else. It's more organizing, sense-making, selecting news and so on. And DebateGraph as a tool is a natural tool that can serve for this. Once again, I'm hopping over certain interesting parts of how all this works, but bear with me because I'm really just showing you the big picture. And then the journalists can see that there are certain things that bother very many people, and they can curate the news so that certain things become headline news, that they really meet the eyes. But this is not all, right? This is, you could say, this is still all conventional journalism. The interesting part comes now, which is the upper loop. And the upper loop has to do with taking the issues into the systemic domain, right? To properly respond to anything that might bother people today. Working symptomatically will not be enough. We need to work systemically. That means we need to understand the deeper systemic reasons for what is observed as a problem. To do that, we can ask the expert. So in the upper loop, experts are also included. We can ask them directly. Remember the collective mind, right? Everybody's linked together. So we ask the expert, okay, so maybe people have a problem because they cannot pay the rent, many of them are unemployed. We ask the expert, and the expert says, well, you know what? We have serious problems with the international monetary system. People should really, really look at that. Okay, maybe it's very difficult for people to understand what in the world is international monetary system and how does it work. Well, we can make models. We can make models in the sense of explaining things that are complex so that they become transparent to people, something like very simple mathematics, right? 1 + 1. Okay, now I understand what is really going on. Or we can use contemporary media and make computer animation. So people can actually see how the money flows, right, from one pocket to another. And then experts can help the people find leverage points. What is really a solution to all this? And the solution could be as remote from the problem as challenging or canceling the personal legal rights of the corporation that identify them as persons. Now, this is not something that you might think about if you have trouble paying your rent or if you're unemployed, right? Nonetheless, this is something that the people should understand and know if we really want to have democracy, in the sense that if we really want to be able to deal with the problems that people experience in a way that can actually lead to solutions in the complex world. And so we had a journalism model. We noticed, however, I'm illustrating a little bit also on the meta level how this whole prototyping works. We had a prototype. But the prototype kind of dissolved right after we left Barcelona, because the journalists came back to their agencies, to their busy days, busy schedules, and there wasn't really anybody who could recreate journalism with their own bodies. We realized essentially that the people who are embedded in the system cannot change the system. And so we realized that somebody else has to do it. In our next event in the Silicon Valley, which was, we had a workshop in Palo Alto, essentially in Meilin's house. And we completed something which is called the game-changing game. The game-changing game is a generic way to change systems. It works essentially, it's obviously a real-life game. People play the game-changing game by having their careers or playing their career games. The game-changing way. Game-changing way means that they're not going to just learn a career and perform in it. They're going to join their career, live their careers by changing the system in which they live and work. But they cannot do this alone, right? So the players are of two kinds. A players, we call them, and Z players. A players are people who are in a kind of a transition in their lives and careers, such as students, such as entrepreneurs, ready to begin new projects. Z players are embedded in the system. They are maybe funders or sponsors or professors and so on. They play by enabling the Z players, the A players, to play in a game-changing way. What you see on the right is how we pitch the game-changing game to the Future Salon. Now, this was presented in the Bay Area Future Salon. What you see on the left is part of the audience. I'll come back to that. What you see on the right, you see essentially how we pitch the game-changing game. I'll be a bit more specific in the next slide. But the idea is that an A player is we can make this more interesting by introducing this fairy who meets the A player and says, okay, make a wish. Whatever you wish to achieve, whatever you wish to contribute to the mankind will be granted. Make the most audacious wish you can, right? Such as solve global problems or make a large contribution to human knowledge. So think about the largest contribution to human knowledge you can possibly imagine, right? Help remedy the financial crisis, save lives, reduce suffering. The audience on the left, I'm choosing this picture in order to illustrate a little bit this lineage from Doug Engelbart. These two people you see, they are Bill and Roberta English. They were essentially the right hand and the left hand of Doug Engelbart in the days when he was creating this technology. They were the people who left the lab and joined the Xerox PARC, and they're really, you know, the people from whom the TV was stolen in this metaphorical image by Steve Jobs, Bill Gates. So they were with us. This is a snapshot of the game-changing game presentation. This map was implemented on the web. So the player, the A player especially, comes to the welcome node and gets to choose one of the career goals, and then all choices lead to the game start, from which two nodes are available, or two realms to explore. One is the vision quest and the other one is the action quest. In the vision quest, one learns why such enormously large achievements are possible through systemic innovation. In the action quest, they are given the opportunity to either study the existing projects and join them, or co-create similar or different projects of their own. We were the same year, essentially, we were implementing the game-changing game in an interesting environment in Zagreb. These are some of the innovation leaders in Zagreb, Croatia. I'm not going to talk about this in detail, but just mention that based on the game-changing game, we recreated the Club of Rome, or we made a redesign of the Club of Rome. I hope you're familiar a little bit with the Club of Rome. If you're not, please Google it. The Club of Rome was created in order to streamline the understanding and handling of global issues. What we were essentially saying is understanding global issues, yes, that's very fine. Talking to the governments and the businesses and so on and saying, hey guys, we need to change, that's also okay. But it probably won't lead to solutions for reasons already mentioned. We need to play the game-changing game. And so let's create a variant of the Club of Rome which will be a club of Z players, essentially enabling the young people, the A players, to, in quotes, change the world, or to change institutions, or to change whatever needs to be changed. So the Club of Zagreb was, people flew from all parts of the world, Yuzuru Tanaka from Japan, Megan and others from the States. Everybody flew into Zagreb. We opened the Club of Zagreb, And then we took a bus to Dubrovnik and had our 2012 meeting in Dubrovnik. We created in 2013, after this Dubrovnik meeting in 2012, still trying to deal with the same basic issue: how do we change systems? How do we how do we empower people to realign with their own bodies, with their own minds, and create completely new infrastructures for knowledge work and for all other things? So Sam Hahn, whom you see here, David Price, and myself, we began talking online on Skype, and we were doing this daily for a while, and this still goes on. We created a little community which was called Amigos, whose task was to bootstrap the community of impact. And the task of the community of impact was to align people for impact. Impact means systemic impact. How do we change systems? We are still active, and we are creating tools and practices for this type of work. A major turn of events has just happened in Prague, which some of you are surely familiar with, where Global Education Futures Forum has began. I guess it has always been the case, but I think it has now explicitly started to work on the very same agenda. So we see a powerful flow toward the creation of a new frontier. Just a couple more, I see that my time is almost running out, a couple more prototypes, and then I will let you speak. Tesla and the Nature of Creativity, we created this as well, one of the beautiful prototypes of Knowledge Federation or of Collective Mind. I have a blog post which is called A Collective Mind, Part 1, where this is explained in detail, so you can take a look. But essentially, the story is that Dejan Rakovic, whom you see, he's a quantum physicist. You see him on the right from me, as we look, right? The man in the, not in the black dress, but in the brown dress, brown suit. He came up with a result that could have major impact in all kinds of other disciplines and in our culture at large. It has to do with the nature of human creativity. So what he was doing, he was explaining the creativity of the genius inventor Nikola Tesla, who had this amazing ability to just grasp very complex pieces of machinery in a kind of a leap of intuition. So what then realized was that this phenomenon, this type of creativity, largely not understood and not nourished in our culture, could be understood by using the paradigm of quantum physics. And so, long story short, what we have is a phenomenon that something very important is written in the language of quantum physics. It's not really a quantum physics result, so who will ever read this? People who are interested in creativity, they cannot really understand it because it's written very much in the language of quantum physics. What we did was federate Dejan's result. So what you see on the left is we applied communication design. We collaborated with a very good communication designer. His name is Fredrik Refsli from Norway, who essentially turned Dejan's incomprehensible research article into a multimedia object. What you see here is a page in this multimedia object where you have easily comprehensible intuitive models of how this direct creativity might work. There are several other models also, an explanatory model how this works inside, but this is a phenomenological model, right? If you want to develop direct creativity of Nikola Tesla, this is essentially what you need to know. And you see some little icons here, so you could click on an icon and of a loudspeaker icon, and hear an interview with the author, where the interviewer is asking all kinds of obvious questions and giving the author a chance to explain his model in a language that everyone can understand. And then you have another icon where if you click on that one, you are transported into the corresponding part of the article. So the effect is making the article understandable to everyone. And another effect is that we could draw from the article certain ideas that we could then place into common awareness, into the public sphere, and make them known, make them accessible, make them understandable for everybody. In order to truly make these ideas known, we organized a physical dialogue. This was stage 2 of this federation process. A kind of a high-profile event. You can see all this on my blog post in Belgrade, in a very beautiful space, with all kinds of media present. And then what you see on the right is our collective mind properly working. We invited the people to come together on debate graph. And what was happening there was we placed initially the basic model of direct creativity, or Tesla's creativity, created by Dejan Rakovic. And we invited everybody to contribute to the model. Now people could ask questions, is this really so? They could maybe make challenging remarks, connect with the pieces of or documents or just written questions, challenging or supporting the model. Or they could think further and say, okay, if this is really the case, are we developing or inhibiting this type of creativity in our education? And if we have really misunderstood the nature of creativity, because our worldview was too narrow, we were thinking in those old-fashioned scientific mechanistic terms, not taking quantum physics into account. What sort of other things might we have also ignored? What other human capabilities might be there which we have ignored or denied because our worldview was too narrow? So, with David Price present to introduce us to debate graph and this way of working, we had, I think, about 30 participants online, and some other people joined the collective mind later. And for several weeks, we were essentially being a collective mind, thinking together about the nature of creativity, about Dejan's model, and about all kinds of other implications of both. The Lighthouse, we are involved now hands-on in recreating the system of the systems community. Now, why the Lighthouse? It will turn out that the systems community has, you might recognize some of the people here on the picture. It will turn out that the systems community, the system sciences, since their inception, which was around 1940s, have created a wealth of knowledge to help us create better human systems of all kinds, in knowledge work and in all other walks of life. But this is not what is being done. We are largely trusting the so-called market, or whatever works, or simply just repeating the patterns from the past in democracy, in public informing, in the sciences, in how we organize work in the corporations. And so what the Lighthouse is about, it's about creating just one single piece of information, one single piece of insight. And what you have just seen, what we did with Dejan Raković's insight, you can imagine something similar. But now this is not an insight of a single person. This is an insight of not only one community. This is an insight of anybody who can tell us anything about evolution. And this is also building upon what Norbert Wiener wrote in his seminal Cybernetics in 1948, which is we cannot really trust the market to evolve our systems and to give us stability in the society. Something very, very different is needed. Is this true or false? We're not going to give an answer. We're going to create a system that will continuously give and improve an answer. So this is the Lighthouse project, which we have started working since the International Society for the System Sciences 59th meeting last year in Berlin. This picture was taken in Berlin. You see Pavel Ušalsa there from your side of the world. And Annette, our muse, holding the light. We're going to be presenting the results of this development, obviously initial, in our next meeting, which will be in our meaning, not Knowledge Federations, but International Society for the System Sciences meeting in Colorado this year, the 60th ISSS conference. Okay, one more, just one more little prototype and then I finish. Collabo Science is a kind of a toolkit that you can put on the table in front of people, that you can give to a transdiscipline, so that the people can self-organize by using the pieces of, or the elements from Collabo Science as Lego blocks. So what you see in the middle is a kind of building material. This is now kind of a ideographic presentation of this idea by Frederick Refsley, our communication designer. So what you see is some kind of building blocks in the middle, right? And these building blocks, they're Collabo Science. They enable us to essentially create any kind of systems in knowledge work that we might wish to create. And if some Lego blocks might be missing to implement the kind of function that we would like to implement, then we also have the creators of Collabo Science with us, ready to create completely new Lego blocks. So I'm giving you a hint here how systemic innovation, meaning working with the big world systems, and conventional innovation and entrepreneurship might dance together, how they might work together. Collabo Science or Collabo Framework is what is called a boundary object between linking two interests, the technical IT innovation and the systemic innovation on a large scale. What you see around is different models, different versions of a lighthouse. And the idea here is that the way we collaborate with system scientists, this was presented to pitch this whole idea to the system scientists last summer in Berlin. We are inviting the system scientists to essentially give us the architecture. What should the lighthouse look like, or what should any other system look like? Bring their knowledge to effect, and use our tools, which are now made flexible through Collabo Science, to configure systems of completely new kind. We are meeting in Dubrovnik this year, and we means really some excellent people from your community and some international people from Knowledge Federation. Knowledge Federation is really a federation, it's not, nobody's a member of Knowledge Federation. And all these communities I have been talking about lately, such as Program for the Future and even Debate Graph and so on, everybody joins Knowledge Federation around the project, and then everybody goes home and brings the challenges from Knowledge Federation to their native communities. So this includes the IT people and so on. Collaborology will be a redesign of education. And education is obviously a kind of a good leverage point to act upon, because education is it's the reproductive system in the human organism, right? It creates a new world with every new generation. So how exactly we do education, of course, it will determine hugely what kind of systems and what kind of world we're going to have tomorrow. And long story short, collaborology with its innovative design patterns is created to be the kind of education exactly that will create the best possible world. We can come back to that with your questions. I want to end with a little anecdote. I'm inviting you essentially to complete Doug Engelbart's revolution. This picture was taken when I had a conversation with Doug, one of a number of conversations in Meilin's house. I was on sabbatical for 1 year in the Bay Area, and I became part of this community that grew around Doug, met Doug many times. We met before also, but long story short, we were talking, and Doug, he was diagnosed by Alzheimer in 2007, meaning that his memory was fading. And at this point, his memory was all but gone. So Doug was asking me, so what do you do? Tell me, what is your work? He heard this several times already, but he just forgets, right? And I'm telling him, Doug, we are continuing your mission. We are continuing your work. We are bringing it into essentially all walks of life, into education, into journalism, into science. And the old man, he turned silent for a little while, and then he said, you know, I have essentially pushed my purpose, my mission back into my mind. It's not there. But when you speak like this, it is as if a crack opens up and lots of emotion comes through. Thank you very much. My last message, which was this visual message, was created again by Frederick Refsley, and it is there to remind us that we are essentially parts of systems that determine how we are and also what the effects of our daily work and of our life will be on the world. Let's recreate those systems together. Thank you very much.
So, Dino, now we'll turn to questions.
Okay, I stop sharing the screen, right? Or you stop sharing my screen?
I think we'll do it slowly. One moment, we'll do it.
It would be nice if I can see you. Okay. I don't hear anything.
All right, and we have still some attendees online, and we will have echo. Sorry for this.
Let me ask you maybe first.
Yes.
You know,
Позвольте мне вас спросить.
the story of Doug.
История Дага.
It is notorious that people didn't really understand Doug, and I think one of the questions, one of the mysteries, why, right? What is so difficult to understand? But could you? I'm wondering if you people feel you understood my message. What is it that I was really trying to say?
Dino, do you hear me?
I do.
Okay, so could you repeat, please? Because it was some problems with sound.
I said that Doug had a lifelong problem explaining his vision.
Я говорил, что
And my question is, do you feel you could understand what I was talking about? Do you understand how I was trying to convey to you Doug's unfinished revolution? And in what way we in Knowledge Federation are trying to contribute to continuing this revolution? But first of all, do you understand the nature of this revolution? And if I can do anything to help you understand it.
В первую очередь, понимаете ли вы причины, по которым как бы сложилось такое видение? Где у нас микрофон? Да, можно? So, do you hear me? No?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Эхо, да.
So we have one person who says that he understands the idea, and one of the methods proposed is also to, as a Babylon Tower, where everybody is speaking their own language in the different sciences, and so we can then assume that Doug's idea would be to eliminate this contradiction between different misunderstanding of different languages of different sciences.
Yeah, that's an excellent example, right? My point here is very open-ended, right? When we open up to the possibility of a collective mind and creating the functions for this collective mind, the possibilities end up being virtually endless.
Yes.
So what you mentioned is one of them, definitely one of them. It's a very, very important one, right?
Наши возможности становятся бесконечными, безграничными.
No. So, to continue, in this way that people understand each other, we need to have some system of sentences which I understood only in one way, in the same way. Because often we have because often we have misunderstanding because of the meaning of these sentences.
Right.
So okay. So do you make any work in this direction to?
Once again, the same sentence. I didn't understand one word.
So the last sentence was about, so do you make any work? So do you have work in this direction?
Yeah, but this is what I was just showing as Tesla and the Nature of Creativity project, which is described quite a bit.
Я показывала на слайде вот про Тесла и коллективное мышление, коллективное творчество.
I should maybe mention polyscopy because that has been.
Я должен упомянуть полископию, это некая система.
Which polyscopy has to do with representing information on different levels of abstraction. You can imagine I use the
показывать, демонстрировать информацию на разных уровнях абстракции. То есть
And so on the bottom layers you can have technical results, and maybe what you have is all kinds of forests, sometimes jungles. One can be chemistry, one can be nuclear physics, one can be sociology. They don't really speak to
Пересад джунглей этих знаний, причем из разных областей.
Each has its own language.
И у каждого, как бы, в каждой области есть как бы, ну, свой язык, свой предметный как бы, аппарат технологический.
Now we the people, we the human society could benefit phenomenally from some of them if we could properly understand them. I have a wonderful collection of very important insights which have not been understood. One of them is dogs.
Need you feel? One moment, could you please a bit slowly so that I can translate?
I said.
I mean the last one, just about the human understanding.
I'm essentially painting a picture, and you can imagine a mountain and kind of a jungle around the mountain, but it's not just one jungle, it's a number of separated jungles. One is maybe physics, one is chemistry, one is sociology.
Ну вот как бы разных наука там химия, физика и так далее. Yes,
and there is a wealth of insights buried in those jungles, which we the people could phenomenally benefit of, but we don't see them, we don't understand them, because they are written in the language of the jungle.
Но в целом у нас есть возможность, возможность получать там преимущества каждой из этих областей, но как бы там вопрос, насколько мы сможем продраться сквозь эти джунгли.
So what Polyscopy does and what we do in Knowledge Federation also.
Например, что мы делаем в полископии, в Федерации знаний, Knowledge Federation.
Is essentially drawing this insight up the mountain, and up the mountain means expressing them first of all in a language that everybody can understand.
Есть помещение в некую структуру этой горы и выражение, как бы
and then linking them with each other, and then building even higher level insight.
Некого общего понимания, то есть так, чтобы было понятно, там, что
The ultimate goal is what we call the top of the mountain view, right? That we see the world.
То есть в целом, как бы, если там, когда мы доходим до этой вершины горы, да, мы можем видеть всю картину.
We see the world as one. We see what is important to know. You can imagine, some mountain peaks, some forests and lakes, which, if you're down in the jungle, you don't really see them.
С разными лесами, реками и так далее. Разных. So, Dina? Dina, and is it possible to see somewhere how it's implemented, how it's realized? I mean, they mean polyscopy.
Polyscopy would require a whole lecture, but we are essentially building a prototype platform that showcases polyscopy. Let me say a word about this.
Ну, позвольте мне сказать.
Do you want to translate? I pause it. And so, polyscopy platform, which we are building now, we're creating.
То есть платформа полископии, которую они сейчас разрабатывают,
will showcase polyscopy. It will showcase. It will exhibit polyscopy by applying polyscopy to the creation of a view of an impending enlightenment-like change. So if you imagine that the solution to our problems might be an enlightenment-like change, a comprehensive change of worldview.
Если решение какой-то проблемы должно быть, ну, может быть выделено, да?
A comprehensive change of systemic structure.
Полноценное изменение вот этого последнего фразы. Okay.
Then the challenge of polyscopy platform is, can we create a view of this impending enlightenment so that everybody can see it? So in other words, that we can collectively go out of the jungle and look at our world and say, oh my God, there we need to go. And then collectively create a way there, not there.
Ну, придумать решение. Они сейчас...
So,
Dino, could you make an example? So just to clarify it more concretely. So just an example of any problem that Polyscopy can solve, or of any way to do it.
for the time being, we are talking about building a way up the mountain, right? And I could show you slides. I don't know, this is probably not the moment to bother with other slides. We can do this in another kind of situation, in another lecture. But let me just describe very briefly what this is about, right?
So sorry?
Let's say you have, okay, Doug Engelbart is a good example of somebody who wasn't really understood. I have lots of other examples.
Что, в принципе, ну да, хороший пример, как бы, человека, которого там трудно в этом смысле, ну, понять, да, и в этом смысле он тоже относится к подобному.
So let's say sociologist Pierre Bourdieu says something that can change the world in sociology, but largely people don't understand what he's talking about.
Допустим, что-то, как бы, там, что способно поменять мир, какое-то понятие в социологии. And for example...
So in the Polyscopy platform, yeah, go ahead. In the Polyscopy platform, we explain his vision by turning it into a vignette, into a story, into
вот этой системе мы объясняем видение как бы какого-либо человека, ну, видение, ну, этой проблемы с разных сторон. Через
You understand the vignette? It's the kind of thing that you might tell in a party with a glass of wine, right? And everybody says, "Oh my God, wow!" So it's that kind of stories, right? Stories.
One moment, we're translating. We're translating. Как я поняла, что они берут проблему и с помощью разных, ну вот с помощью разных вот этих как бы там историй, там видений каких-то еще, как бы делают вот такой 360 спектр, говоря.
So I'm describing to you the way up the mountain, right? Metaphorically speaking, the way up the mountain. So we have the vignette, and already the vignette makes things understandable to people, visible, right? But this is not enough. So we can weave Bourdieu's insight with somebody else's insight. Concretely, I do this with Joel Bacon. He is actually a lawyer, a law professor. In any case, think about putting two vignettes into a single story, which has a kind of a dramatic tension, right? These two insights, these two stories, they highlight one another. They tell something about each other.
Каждая история, она
It's unexpected, right? So this becomes kind of like a little drama. I call this a thread. So a thread weaves several vignettes together into a kind of a necklace.
Ну, это некая, вообще угроза, ладно, вот, как бы, ну, то есть некую связующую линию, которая эти две истории соединяет, то есть они смотрят на предмет как бы с разных сторон, вот, но, ну, то есть при этом вот это вот, ну, как бы, там некая там нить, да, которая, некая линия, которая их соединяет и показывает предмет как бы с точки зрения разных вот этих историй.
And then look, we can take several of these threads now, we have several threads, and then we can weave them into a pattern. You see something here, and you see it here, and you see it here, and you say, well, this is happening all over the place.
Dina, I'm sorry, so there is a little bit of discussion about it, so one moment. So there is one more question. What kind of math structure,
So, is there any quantification behind? So, like, there is a qualitative part, but is there any quantitative backend? Is there any mathematics involved into the structure?
There could be mathematics. I don't use, I'm trained as a mathematician myself, or theoretical scientist, but I largely use, metaphorical images, stories, ideograms, all kinds of tools and techniques. However, right, I interpret the question as meaning.
В этой системе я предпочитаю использовать метафорические понятия, ну вот сравнение. So, Dina, I guess the question was about software. it's based. So is it based on some kind of software?
Okay, so I have been using a mixture of techniques. I have been using compendium, debate graph. So what I'm doing is essentially I'm improvising a system by prototyping using existing tools. And what I want to do is we want to create ultimately a toolkit for it.
И, ну, как бы, соединяя их. So, do you know, maybe we will have some questions from St. Petersburg.
Right, but let me just say one thing to finish this part of the discussion. Right? What you're describing on the be with me on the mountaintop for 1 second, right? What I'm describing is the genesis, is the creation of an alternative to the book, chapters, table of contents, индекс,
структура это некая структура, например, там вот главам из книги, да, содержание.
Research article. You know, we are recreating these traditional containers of information or knowledge.
Фактически мы переизобретаем существующие формы информации, вот в виде каких-то там отдельных научных статей или там книг или еще что-то. Чего это? То есть мы пересобираем вот это.
To augment, to enable a certain new function, which is essential in this. You can identify it almost with collective intelligence, right? Which is essential in this day and age to enable knowledge to penetrate from different disciplines, from different remote areas. Some part of formal common insight in formal worldview. Okay, that was what I wanted to say.
То есть, чтобы, ну, фактически речь идет о том, что вот есть там различные как бы вот такие. So now Ivan is trying to show it on our display. So do you show please copy? Debate graph. So it's a debate graph. It's not police copy. So okay, maybe we will have any questions from St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg, do you hear us? Okay, so one moment, I'll check if they have sound. Where is it? Audience audio. So, Oleg, do you hear me? So we can't hear you. All right. So they try to say something, but Dina, do they hear them? Do they hear?
I don't hear.
Don't hear. One moment. I'll check it. Скажи, пожалуйста, где эта админская штука, где различно стараются So now you should hear. St. Petersburg, now we should hear you.
Do you hear us?
Yes.
Do you hear us? Hey, Moscow, Dina, do you hear us? Oh, you hear us. So wonderful, Dina. The first question from us. I'll try to get out. Oh, sorry. So it's me, Dina. Hi.
Oleg.
Yes.
Hi, Dina. My question is quite simple. Is here any tool that you have that we could use at the moment? Maybe some kind of visualization of sharing online graph or mind map that is useful for clear our understanding or misunderstanding. At the moment, maybe something that that you could share on your screen, and maybe we will not do it at the moment. But is it something already done? Something that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is a great question. My typical answer to great questions will be, let's evolve answers, let's evolve solutions. I don't think any great question that we answer, like this is the answer, right? And so let me say just a couple of things about this. Debate graph is probably the best solution of this kind today. I also use it a lot. So take a look. But debate graph is still a jungle.
But maybe you have something better.
No, not. I mean, I'm saying let's evolve this something better. And I have been involved in this since quite some time ago. The prototype is called domain map, and you can imagine geographical maps. It answers an earlier question from Moscow, right? This is not just about numbers; it's about relative magnitudes of things. How important is it? How big is it, right? And this you want to see it. You want to express this visually. So this is like knowledge should live on maps, essentially, that are like geographical maps. All of knowledge, but in particular knowledge in a domain. Let's say that we are talking about changing education, right? How do we organize the available knowledge?
Yes.
There has to be a mountaintop view. We have to be able to come to the mountaintop and see, so what are really the big things here, right? And see them right away. This is an ongoing challenge, and we have lots of work, lots of ideas here, and we don't have the solution. We have partial solutions, and we really want to work this jointly. For example, in education, if you want to give people the ability to direct their own education, right? You want to provide the learning resources in a map that is telescopic in the sense that the student can, in the beginning of the class, stand on a virtual mountaintop of the field, look around, and say, oh, there I have to, these parts I know already, these parts I don't think they're relevant, but there I have to study, right? So the domain map we developed by applying it essentially in an educational setting. And I'm not happy with the solution we have created so far, so I won't offer it to you. I really just want us to ask the question.
I have a question too. The question is, what should I practice? What should I develop in my own mind to contribute in this knowledge system to be able to use it? Because for me it's clear that I have different way of thinking really to use this new type of presentation of information to use it.
Now, I see two questions here, right? And both are very interesting. One question is, what do we need to learn in order to be able to practice this? And collaborology, the course that we are doing in Dubrovnik, is all about that, right? We are essentially federating relevant knowledge by asking people to contribute modules. People who have relevant, like David Price of Debate Graph, right? David Price is going to be in Dubrovnik, and he's going to teach a module on Debate Graph and on that type of working with knowledge. Alexander Laszlo is going to be there. You know, all kinds of and some wonderful people, I hope, really, from your environment, also going to be there. And we're going to put our knowledge together essentially and offer it to students. And students here are anybody, right? Not only, of course, university students, but also all other people who do that. Now, if you're done translating, this was my answer to question one. Now, question two that I saw in the question that was just asked was, we are all accustomed to living with and in the existing systemic solutions. And we see them as reality. They determine our reality. How can we change them? How can we even begin? Right? How can we even begin to see them in a kind of a proactive way? And this, I think, is the most wonderful question. You know, this is the core, I think, the core issue of the education of the future. Education, as it has been, has basically socialized us into accepting system, into accepting worldviews as the reality. We have to walk essentially a new way of education. And when I say education, I mean something that affects us all, not only the people who are studying at the university and schools. So this is again another interesting challenge which is in front of us.
The next point from me maybe isn't a question, but a kind of proposition. Yes. Dina, could you speak some following thought for you? Following thing thought for you in Croatian? Could you speak something in Croatian? Some following step in this chain of minds, but in Croatian. I remember our morning practice in Prague when we speak in Russian and Croatian, and it was excellent. We understand you, and we could see some different sides of understanding in this bilingual speaking. Could you answer maybe some reflection of this experience in Croatian?
Что-то связанное с этими переживаниями, с этими мыслями на хорватском.
Dobro je završiti na tom tonu, dobro je završiti na tu temu. Mislim da se novo polje rada otvara ispred nas. I nadam se da ćemo, u stvari ne nadam se, nego interesantno je, događa se jedna akcija, jel me razumijete? Maybe I took your challenge, Oleg, and I'm about to say something pretty complicated. So maybe this is not the best way to build bridges with Croatian. Let me. Da li me razumijete kad govorim hrvatski? Razumijete?
Razumijem.
Odlično. Imamo zajednički jezik. Imamo zajednički jezik, we have a common language.
Yes.
Ja ću učiti ruski. Sljedeći put govorim na ruskom.
Русский не трудный.
Русский простой язык. Хорватский для нас тоже простой язык. Мы можем понимать друг друга, говоря каждый на родном языке. Да?
Да. Окей.
Я думаю, мы можем заканчивать.
Shall we conclude for today? Are there more questions?
Yeah, we have one more important question from Tanya. So, she speaks.
Мне интересно, какие сейчас проблемы конкретно, какие границы применимости этой системы они разбираются. Ну, это система, которая не разрабатывает, какие границы они видят, и какая проблема, которая сейчас решается.
Well, sorry. It's a question about the actual limits for the system you've been developing at present.
How do you feel it?
What are the limits you feel for the model of the system you are elaborating now?
Oh, which system are we talking about? I have been going through a series of prototypes, trying to illustrate the whole approach.
The domain one.
The polyscopy or the last one, the polyscopy?
The main map. Mm-hmm.
Oh, the main map. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, can I hear the question one more time, please?
What are the limits you can pre-see about it? What the limits do you feel? Where is the bound or the boundaries of the system?
You know, we were essentially implementing the main maps on some kind of technology like debate graph. That means simple taxonomy and the graph visual representation. I'm not a single bit. I'm not even remotely satisfied with that. And so one of the limits, one of the interesting challenges we have some professional people working, collaborating on this type of work, right? On this type of challenge. But one basic challenge is how can we visualize a domain? And there are people who work professionally on visualizing domains. You may have seen people developing murals as people discuss the domain, talk about things. You know, there are these artists who are trained in creating murals, so they kind of create a visual image of a domain. And I imagine that might be the top of the mountain view. Now, an interesting challenge remains, how can people co-create this type of mountaintop view? I don't know yet. You know, there are many unresolved challenges around domain mapping.
Thank you for your answer. Vanya, unmute you. You are muted, Ivan.
Okay.
Vanya, you are muted.
Hello. Am I muted? Can you hear me now? I want to say that we've got into the collective discussion here already in Moscow, so we're not just to tell you what's going on. And I would say that maybe it's also a moment for us to like wrap up the Dino's presentation and get like more, maybe a little bit of chaotic but discussion locally without being less structured, but making it. And we here are also looking at the debate graph. I don't know if you can see it, but it is over there being used.
Right, I see it, yes. Very good.
So people are already like jumping in on the debate graph, and it's really amazing to use it on a big screen. So that's going on. I just have also a couple questions from online, which if you can just briefly answer them, that would be just amazing, but really briefly. Also because I need to go and my laptop is running the whole thing. But
right. Let me just say one more thing about the earlier question. You know, Collabo Science is created in order to model, to quickly be able to, the debate graph is something that is used by so many people, and so you cannot just jump into debate graph and do something else. But Collabo Science is that type of thing, and the people creating it, they're like you, right? My PhD student, Sasha Rudan, and his brother Sinisha, they're both developers, extremely bright and able, and they're creating Collabo Science as essentially a way to prototype all these things, right? So there is something like debate graph on Collabo Science. They call it knowledge, and it's a kind of an evolving model of knowledge as such. That much about what's going on. The online.
And the question from online is, what's the gap between collective intelligence and collective mind?
Oh, good question. Yes. Actually, the reason why I like the former, why I prefer the former. Lots of people associate DAG with collective intelligence.
Collective intelligence.
Collective intelligence is almost can be almost anything. You know, anything we do can make the people more collectively intelligent. What in the world does this mean, right? Now, collective mind is it is a much more concrete challenge. How to organize us together so that we act as a single mind. You have scientists out there, you know, looking at the climate, and you have other scientists looking at the CO2 dynamic and so forth, and all together it translates into we might really do something with our economy or with our finance. This is not how the world functions today. We are not a collective mind. We have silos. The scientists are talking to each other. The politicians are, you know, there are no links. And building those links, uniting us all into something that functions as a single mind. It's a major evolutionary challenge for all of us. This we need to take up. Collective intelligence is a nice kind of slogan, right? But collective mind is saying, let's get to business, guys.
Ну, давайте перейдем к делу, ребята.
Well, guys, I really need to go, and we still have discussions here, but I would ask us to stop the webinar because it is being run from my computer, and I'm running for a plane to meet with Mikhail and Pavel on the far side fleet. So Dino, thank you very much. It's like really, like right now there is a feeling that, well, we need to know more how it works, how it really works. And I believe that we should organize some more webinars on maybe some specific things. But that was a great introduction. As an introduction, it was probably like the best we could have.
Thank you too for this opportunity. My intention was exactly that. It was to share the challenge, to share the history and the frontier that opens up beyond. Please give, first of all, my greetings to all of you. Thank you for attending. Thank you for participating, for sharing. And then my greetings to Pavel and Mikhail and all the other great people we're going to see.
Dino, спасибо.
Thank you, Dina.
Спасибо.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.